hour and I have only one value to do. So then we complete all the 20 values. Okay? The last value that is mentioned here is Tattva Jnana Darshana. Okay? You'll only, Tattva means the Jnana means knowledge of Tattva. Tattva is of the truth. Okay? And why I need to know the truth, that is very clear to me. Okay? So why should anyone know the truth? How is truth, knowing the truth, related to my Purushartha? My Purushartha is what? What do I want from life is freedom. Freedom from what? Inadequacy, lack, helplessness, smallness. So this is what I am actually searching for. Right? And anything that I have searched through has not given me what I am looking for. That has to be very clear. Neither it has given me up to now, nor if I continue my search within the same paradigm, it's impossible to get it. Why? Because a limited person engaging in limited object with limited effort cannot, by definition, find freedom from limitation. It's impossible. If it is impossible, do I need to just sit and take a resolve that, okay, now there is no solution to the permanent happiness that I am searching for? Then it is, the life is imperfect and I have to somehow manage the way I can within that imperfection, somehow pull along to the best of my ability. That is such a grim view of life, right? Everything is imperfect. I find myself within this amazing imperfection and I am helpless. I can't really change many things. So I have to what? Do what I can, little to help myself and make my life livable. What kind of vision of life is this? Not inspiring, to say the least. But if you are suffering from this limitation, which is because of not knowing the realities fully, and by knowing the realities accurately, what? If it leads to freedom, then the whole life search becomes what? Knowing those realities. Knowing those realities become very important because they are directly related to what? My search for freedom. When we talk about knowing the realities, we are talking about objectivity, seeing things as they are. No addition, no subtraction. So when we are talking about realities, we are not talking about positive thinking. You need to understand the difference between positive thinking and realities. There was one of the participants in one of my retreats, I think 4 or 5 years ago. He told me, but what's wrong with positive thinking? He said, this is very famous example of what? Glass is half empty or half full. So what is one perspective, which is half empty glass, which I am complaining about, half empty glass. Then the positive thinkers tell you, forget about that, but concentrate on half full glass. What would a Vedantin say?
It's always full.
No. That is true in some ways. What is the reality here?
Both half full and
Exactly. The reality is this glass is both half full and half empty. You can't just ignore one part. Proper perspective means you need to understand the totality. Before, we were ignoring what? The full part. Our vision was partial. Now, with positive thinking, we are focusing on another part and ignoring the other part. Our vision still remains partial. Because we don't see the whole thing as it is. Either we concentrate on what we call negative. Empty doesn't make it negative. And half full. What? We shift from negative to positive. In both cases, we miss the reality. Because the reality is, it is half full and half empty. What is intelligent living? Intelligent living is, with this half full water, what can I do the best? Because that's an opportunity. I don't need to over-project the fullness, but with what is, what I begin to use it in an intelligent manner to achieve what I want in life. The minute I remove myself from reality, I start to live in my own world, which doesn't correspond to what is. And whenever I lose touch with reality, the universe brings about situations which will try to put me back in touch with reality if I learn from it. But if I don't learn from it, I go further and further away from realities. So Vedanta is the sanest person in this earth is what? The person who is in touch with reality. The whole commitment, all these arguments and all these analysis, the whole thing is meant for what? Not just some kind of a mental build-up. It is meant to put you in touch with reality. Because what has happened is, while living, you have created your own world, which doesn't correspond to what is. And the attempt of the books and the teacher is to make you see what is. And what is a beautiful vision. What is the vision? That the whole universe collapses into one reality. Now, even that has to be understood properly. What we saw is everything collapses is what? Time, space, objects, everything is forms within forms within forms, and it all just collapses into a concept. Any quantum physicist will say that there is no tangible object remaining after particles. So that means what we say is, yes, there is a concept, but there is an intelligence which what? Organizes tiniest particles to create this whole Jagat, the way we see it. That intelligence is in and through everything. In the functioning of the eyes, how different parts are put together. Eyes have so many, ask any ophthalmologist, how many things are there in this little instrument called eyes? They have specialization within specialization within specialization. Somebody only takes care of retina, because the whole eye becomes too much to figure out. Knowledge within knowledge within knowledge. Now, there is another catch here. When I say all that is here is Ishvara, which is that intelligence, you create another distortion. Oh, everything is Ishvara means everything is wonderful. Everything, I have to just be unconditionally loving everything. This is another, your projection. All that is Ishvara is a fact. Because of that, you just have to, it would be like saying, oh yeah, let the thief come and take away from my home because everything is one. Will you live like that? Oh, somebody wants to murder me? No problem. Please take the knife and murder me because anyway the body is mithya. Right? That living the vision of oneness is a very intelligent thing. Even though everything is Ishvara, it does not mean what? Everything is good. The whole definition of Ishvara, there was this very, very famous German psychologist. His name was Carl Jung. Very big name. He looked into the creation, and the Western concept of Ishvara is what? All love. All the goodies. Then it says, when I look at this universe, how many things I find good? Honestly, how many things you find beautiful and nice and half-half. So now, let's say half things are beautiful and half things are what? Fraught with. There are wars, there are people who are greedy, then people are exploiting each other and all this. And he says, if God is all good, where does all these problems come from? Then he says, the people who belong to a certain kind of thinking, they have created another force, because everything good comes from God and everything not so good comes from where? Evil, devil, Saturn. So now you have two entities, God, which is all good, and Saturn, which represents everything bad. Then Carl Jung asks, what kind of a God it is constantly fighting with Saturn or evil. And evil seems to be what? Winning. So this God is helpless with reference to that evil. If the God is helpless, why should I pray to that God? Carl Jung. A thinker, big thinker, true. Therefore, your definition of God has to change. You have to re-understand what God is. It has to include what? Everything. It cannot just include good. It has to include everything. Anything that happens here, it's all within Ishvara.
Like a meditation.
Yes. No matter what it is within Ishvara. My sadness is within Ishvara's order. My jealousy is within Ishvara's order. My anger is within Ishvara's order. Why? Because the anger has certain reasons. Who is Ishvara? Is connecting that cause with the effect. It is that intelligence which connects the cause with the effect. Itself is any quality, good or bad, it is free from both. My mother told me I was not wanted. Fact. Effect. As an adult, I feel unwanted. Cause, effect. There is a law which connects the two. What happened in my childhood and how I feel now. If I want to get out of this feeling, can I ignore the order? I have to work within that order to free myself. I can't ignore that order. The order is inherently what? Neither good nor bad. I was loved as a child when I was young. Effect, I will grow up with good self-esteem. Cause, effect. Right inputs, right results. Inappropriate inputs, inappropriate results. Does the God have a will that let this person suffer or let this person have a good time? That would become a very partial God. Ishvara, you can, it's only Sarvajnaha Sarvashaktiman. Very appropriate definition. All knowledge and all power. Which manifests as time, space and objects and all the possibilities. And we collapse possibilities and the results are given according to the types of possibilities we have collapsed. Itself is free. So therefore, you have to understand Ishvara is not this goody-goody, but as what?
An intelligence that pervades everything.
Exactly, that intelligence which pervades everything. Now, if that is the nature of Ishvara, when you understand that there is an intelligence which pervades everything, does it mean that all the characters and all the forms that are there within that intelligence are all good? Not necessarily. You have all kinds of people because they have collapsed those possibilities differently. Somebody has abused the laws and somebody has followed the laws. And each one is going through situations according to how they have lived their life in the past. And also how they are continuing to live their life in the present. So therefore, when you come across a person, Do you say everything is Ishvara, so everybody is wonderful? Not necessary. To be able to distinguish and to act appropriately is part of objective living. Lord Krishna, was he the same towards Arjuna and Duryodhana? No. What knowledge did he give to Arjuna? All that is here is Ishvara. But doesn't mean that he was the same with Arjuna and Duryodhana. Arjuna represents a mature person who tries to follow dharma. Duryodhana represents what? A person who is confused about dharma and only thinking about what? Himself. In fact, when Arjuna had to fight against Duryodhana, his first reaction is, oh my God, he's my cousin. How can I fight? Won't I be going against dharma? What did Lord Krishna teach Arjuna? When it comes to dharma, you can't let your vision be colored. Apply one standard of dharma for people that you are not close to you, and another standard of dharma to people who are close to you. You have to have that objectivity and lucidity. If it is adharma, whether it is your cousin or your brother or it is your father, whoever, you have to stand up for dharma. You can't let it go. Your emotions cannot interfere with your sense of what is to be done. Because if you let it happen, then what will you do? The person who has taken the kingdom adharmically, you end up supporting that person by not resisting that person. And when you do that, you participate in what? Adharma.
What happens if it's like a mother and a son, or a husband and a wife, and you have to be loyal, but you know that they're doing something that's wrong?
You have to stand up. You do. You have to stand up for it. Because that whole thing of dharma is, you can't let just those relationships color your objectivity. Life of objectivity means dharma comes first, not the people and your love for those people. Because by letting your emotions go, what you are doing is supporting adharma. You are not helping that person to reform.
Even if it is for harmony, you say, okay, let it be harmonious, forget it.
Still it is, that actually that harmony never works. Why? Because Pandavas let go. How many times they were wronged? How many times they were wronged? Several times. And every time what did they do? Let go for harmony. Right? So therefore, the first time they just took the entire kingdom and gave them that little barren land, they let go. Second time they built a wax house and they wanted to burn, they let go. Third time they were invited to play game of dice, they let go. Draupadi was disrobed, they let go. They were sent to the forest, they let go. 1 year they had to live in the forest incognito, let go. When the 13th year was over, Duryodhana didn't want to give back that little piece of kingdom which originally belonged to them. All these letting go, did it reform Duryodhana? It just gave him a license to do more and more and more. Enabled. Passive enablance. Then came that 13th, what? Then came, Duryodhana said, no, I'm not giving you, you have to, he insisted you have to go back to the forest for next 12 years. Lord Krishna said, you can't do that. Enough. He says, don't worry, I will go and I will negotiate with Duryodhana. Lord Krishna went to Duryodhana as a messenger. He went to negotiate. He says, let's avoid war, because war is not something which is what we want. But you can't just push them around. So let's come to an agreement. Give them back that original little kingdom they had. Give it back to them. You still have majority. Duryodhana said, no. He said, okay, don't give that back. Give back what? 5 little villages. No, first villages within that little region. No. Okay, if you can't give 5 villages, give 1 village with 5 houses. No. If you can't give 1 village, give 1 house with 5 rooms. No. Lord Krishna said, now you leave me optionless. Duryodhana said, if you want an ounce of kingdom back, fight and take it. Lord Krishna says, I have tried my best. Pandavas have gone for so long, and here, in spite of that, I have come to negotiate and I am willing to give up so much. But if you don't budge, now, then there is war. Left with no option. Then the war starts. When the war starts, Arjuna is shaking. He says, my God, I am seeing my own cousins, my own grandfather, my own teacher on the other side. They are all the people that I love. How can I fight against them? What did Lord Krishna say? That if you don't fight against the person who is doing adharma after adharma after adharma, and you just give him what? Free hand to do whatever he wants, and here he happens to be what? The king. How many people will be affected by what? His adharmic behavior. Whether he is your cousin or your brother or whoever it is, you have to stand up. If you stand up just to take your personal revenge, it's an ordinary war. Because it's just a personal revenge. But if you stand up for greater good, then it becomes dharma yuddha. War not for your personal gain, but for holding dharma. That each one has to do. One cannot just be an accomplice because of love. Because that not only doesn't help the person, but it actually, you facilitate that person to be more adhyatmic over a period of time. Because person finds no resistance. This is why our teacher, he taught us something extremely beautiful. Please don't use all that is here is Ishvara to get into some kind of emotional thing of let's love everyone and let's be compassionate towards everyone. He said, yes, you have to be compassionate, but in every relationship there is a boundary. There is no relationship without boundaries. I used to wonder, what does it mean? What is this boundary? Till the time that I keep telling the same story, now I have to look for another story. Surya says, some of your stories people must have heard 25 times. Change your stories. So I need to talk more to people and get new stories.
Here, refuting story number 21, remember?
Yeah, but would be nice to hear.
Can I tell the story? Okay.
Our lives, so.
Yes. So I'll tell the story. Even if you heard it, doesn't matter. The story goes that, which is a real story, by the way. The story is that when we were living abroad, there came one girl and she was obviously a little bit disturbed. So therefore, what happened is that her parents brought her to us and said, can you please talk to her? So we said, okay. Now we told the parents to go and we took her out to a nice Italian restaurant. And over pizza. And we were chatting. So we said, yeah, so what's happening? So she said that I was living in the US and I had a boyfriend, and that boyfriend was abusing me, physically abusing me. So I said, for how long did you stay in this relationship? She said, 3 years. I said, what? You're not some kind of an uneducated, helpless person. You're well educated from a good family. How did you stay in a relationship where you were being abused? And she said that every time my boyfriend beat me, after that he would start crying and say, I've had a very difficult childhood. I've had a very difficult childhood because I've seen my father beating my mother. And that was so traumatic for me. So as a child I hated my father, but now as an adult I'm repeating what my father did to my mother. And I'm really trying to reform. And if you leave me, I will be destroyed. So this woman, in the name of compassion, she felt what? Responsible. How can I leave him alone? He's trying to change. He's trying to reform. I have to be there for him. I have to help him. And that kept her going in that relationship for 3 years. And nothing got solved, it only got what? Worse. Then one day, she was so badly beaten, she had to call the police and she had to run away. So that's when I remembered my teacher's words. Every relationship has a boundary. You have to say this much and no more. You can't let people abuse you in the name of being compassionate. There is this whole value of ahimsa. Ahimsa towards others and ahimsa towards yourself. You are a trustee of this body. You can't let anybody abuse this body, either physically or mentally. That's your responsibility. And you have to use your free will to stop it. Because if you are not, you are an accomplice in adharma. You are allowing somebody to be adharmic without resisting. So therefore, Ishvara is everything doesn't mean that you just have to be indiscriminately just hugging everyone and that means this universe has what? Different kinds of people. You may not hate them. You may not hold them and you may not hold all the resentment in your mind, but you have to what? Deal with them. You have to do what needs to be done. Once you have done what you need to do, then you can drop them and not just carry the tape. Of that hurt or that whatever. And you can be gentle in drawing boundaries. It doesn't mean that when you draw boundaries you have to be all aggressive and you have to be all fighting mode. Not at all. When you draw your boundaries, you just have to stick to the truth. And truth has its own strength. You can be very polite, but you can ask the person to stop. Doesn't mean that you have to give some big, this thing. But you have to say it. Say it nicely, but you have to say it. Right? So therefore, intelligent living and seeing Ishvara everywhere is not a small thing. It's not some kind of, floating ideas. It requires a lot of maturity, a lot of discretion, a lot of grace, a lot of asking for help, asking for clarity, and intelligently navigating your life within all these series of orders. Until you do that big reality will remain a secret. Right? So therefore, we all want what? Every experience is a teacher. You have to convert every experience into a teacher. Many people say, I used to feel, now what? After 3.5 years, now what? You know what? You have come with your prarabdha karma, your life will flow. It is flowing and it will flow. You don't need to worry about what should I, it will flow. But as it flows, you have to be what? Proactive. And take proper lessons and align constantly to different aspects of Ishvara. That alignment will make your life very easy. It is like a boatman. Just last example and I will stop. It is like a boatman. A boat has to go to some place using the river. Now if the boatman is intelligent, what will he or she first do? Understand the currents, which direction they are going. But by just looking at the current, is the thing accomplished? No. He would use his free will and place his boat where the current is. Once he places it in the right place, then he will use the flow to reach where he wants. With what? Minimum effort. If he just was totally oblivious to which direction is the flow and whatever and just wanting to go, he may or may not reach, and if he does, there will be a lot more struggle. But once he understands how it works and if he aligns, it becomes very easy. Now, somebody asked me this question, but what if the destination that he has to go is not in the direction of current but against the current? What happens then? If he has to go in the other direction, do you think he has to navigate to the same place? If he goes with the flow, where the flow is, what will happen? He will be in the opposite direction. He has to stay away from the flow, and where he has to go? In a periphery. He has to come where the current is less. Then he has to what? He or she has to start navigate away from the current. But you still have to go. Okay. That whole discretion. Where do I want to go? What are the laws? How can I align? If at times I have to do something which is against the flow, but it is the right thing to do, then what? I can't totally stop it. I have to take my own time. One step at a time. But I have to do something. I can't just be sitting and watching passively. So that is what? Giving meaning to this life. Makes it intelligent, makes it meaningful, makes it what? Aware of how things are, investing in understanding how things are, and then aligning with it. If that alignment takes place, the time that you know your identity with Ishvara is not too far. Because the whole teaching, when Ishvara tells you through a teacher that you and me are the same. But in order to understand that, I first need to be aware of the presence of Ishvara and align my life to all these different laws which manifest. So that is, all these 20 values give you what? Alignment with what is Ishvara. Right? So we will chant these values that we have learned over the past 10 days. These are values. If you live by these values, you are aligned. Amanitvam adambhitvam. Chant. After me. Ahimsa Shanti Rajavam Acharyopasanam Shaucham Sthairyamatmavinigrahaha Indriyartheshu Vairagyam Anahantara evacha Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha Doshanudarshanam Asakti Anabhishvangaha Putradara Gruhadishu Nityancha Samachittatvam Ishtanishtopapatishu Mai Chananya Yogena Bhakti Ravyabhicharini Vivikta Desha Sevitvam Anadirjana Samsadi Surya is laughing in fact and he's
It's all haywire. It means the opposite the way we are saying it.
Surya is laughing and he's making me laugh. Adhyatma Vidya Tattvajnanartha Darshanam Etat jnanamiti proktam Ajnanam yadatonyatha. Okay. Now the pronunciation is a problem. And what is more of a problem is if I ask you what the first value meant. Already forgotten. You've even forgotten what it means, let alone assimilating it in your life and living it. This is how human mind is. But we keep trying.
And we have notes.
And the So, with this ends Bhagavad Gita, 20 values. They are beautiful values. If you can take one, my teacher used to say, you don't need to put all 20 values and make a checklist. Oh, I've got this now and I have to work on this. He said, take one value and try to live by it. Everything else will come. Because all these values are all related. Right? And this is where one time Shona came to me and said, if you really understand all this, then living a life of dharma becomes choiceless. Because it's aligning to what is.
And it feels better and better.
And it feels better and better. And you get more and more strength. Right? So therefore, if you follow one dharma, that will take you forward. Okay? So with this. Thank you. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate